Everybody, we are live again. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's a beautiful day. Well, it's kind of cool. Yes, today is my birthday. I am 38. I don't look it, but I am 38. I look 29, but I am 38 today. Today is my birthday. So, everyone, thank you so much for
Happy,
joining. What was that?
happy birthday. Happy birthday.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We have a special guest, Mr. Nana Omateng. Did I say it right? Amo
Amoateng.
Amoateng.
Amoateng. Yeah.
Amoateng. But before we get started, again, if you are looking for a business, a work from home business where you can basically set up your own Go franchise, go to dynastymirror.com, send me an email, and I will get back to you. So there we go. Again, if you're looking for a work from home, home based business, work from home opportunity, dealing with gold, reach out to me. Go to dynastymirror.com. Also, too, y'all, listen, I am praying. I hope and I pray that this whole coronavirus, we're at the very least, we are able to travel internationally by mid-June, mid to end of June. So guess what? Tours are still cracking. We're going to Nigeria in August, August 13th to the 19th. If you want to roll, go to dynastymirror.com. Okay. What's my email? Just go to dynastymirror.com and you could send me email from there, Miss Jones. Also, too, Sierra Leone. We are rolling to Sierra Leone, December 4th through 12th. If you want to roll with us, go to dynastymirror.com. So I have Mr. Nana Amwateng on with us today. Ghanaian, currently lives in the UK. And we're going to be discussing reparations, but we're going to go in a different direction. Now, Nana, you said Black Americans should start with Africa when going after reparations. Why do you say that? And introduce
Okay.
yourself, who you are, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on your channel.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to come on the channel for a long time, but you know. So my name is Nana Amoateng Elvis. I was born in Ghana. Um, so I've studied on the I've lived and studied in several countries on the African continent, like Ghana, Nigeria, DR Congo, Benin Republic, before I moved to Europe to continue with my studies. So presently I'm in the UK, and I'm in the process of completing a PhD in politics and international studies at University of Warwick. And my thesis looks at a different topic, not this topic. So my thesis looks at the Niger Delta conflict, trying to understand how institutions have shaped Nigerian elites regarding the conflict. So yeah, at the moment I'm in London and I'm in my mom's apartment in London. It's a temporary thing, and I'm happy to be talking. This is a topic that came to me just you know I've been trying to come on the channel, but today I was thinking of something to discuss, and I thought this was something that had been, even though there's been several discussions on reparations, but as you said, it's been on a different tangent, and I think that most of the other tangents don't get to the root of dealing with the issue. That's why I want to look at it from this angle. So why reparations must begin on the African continent. So to begin with, I know that there are those that, I mean, descendants of former slaves who are happy in America and elsewhere, who have made those places their homes. So this discussion does not really relate to them. I mean, if you don't have, you know, that you don't have the longing to go to have relations with the African continent, then this is not really a discussion for you. But my main focus is on those who desire or have already established contact with the African continent, whether through several means, tourism or other means. And most of the discussions, I know that, most of the things have been around tourism. We saw with Ghana's year of return how it attracted large numbers, and the tourism ministry that handled that thing. So people have largely been invited to the African continent. And when we look at the AU, the invitation of AU to Africans in the diaspora, what you can see is more going there to help the African Union to build African countries. So always given to the African continent, going there. Some have gone there themselves to take royal titles, business opportunities, acquiring lands or getting lands for free, building settlement, residence, citizenship. But there's one void in the discussion, which has to do with the role of the African diaspora in terms of decision making on the African continent, which is important for the discussion of reparation, i.e., I'm referring to politics, political decisions on the African continent, which in the end, must deal with the issue of reparation from a very strategic angle. And here is why. I'll just use. I know that most of the viewers and listeners must have watched Black Panther. More than once. And one of the characters that striking and who is frightening for Africans on the continent, but also for white supremacists, is Killmonger easily. And when you analyze the role of Killmonger, I'm going to analyze his role in the movie to illustrate the point that I want to make.
You talk about Black Panther, correct?
Yeah, Black Panther. So
okay,
I'm referring to Killmonger in Black Panther.
Okay.
And we know he was, son of Prince Njobu, and an African, American woman from Oakland, right, California. So he was T'Challa's cousin. He was an American Black Ops soldier, and his mission in the movie. So when he finally goes back to Wakanda, his mission was to seek revenge for his father's death, first one, but also to seek justice for disadvantaged Black people around the globe, right? And why did he go there? Why didn't he do that within the context of America? So he had the birthright to challenge T'Challa for the throne. In other words, he demanded his right to become a decision maker on the in Wakanda, which is to say that he wanted to return there to influence institutions that had undermined his own progress as an individual Black person, but also the progress of Black people. Now, so what were the options for Killmonger? And as I highlighted for several categories of Americans and other Africans in the diaspora. So one option could have been for him to channel his anger in America, to fight for his cause in America, to live there, and just as we've seen with all these movements, right, in America, trying to fight for reparations and all of that. He didn't choose that. He could have begged, he could have done demonstrations and all of that to achieve his goal. He didn't do that. He could have used violence because he was a Black, ops. He was a soldier. He could have used violence to kill a few people in America to demonstrate his anger, right? But he didn't do that, because if he had done that, you'd have called him a terrorist.
Right.
He was fighting for the cause, but he would have been branded a terrorist, meaning that he was using the wrong institution to fight for a right cause. Now, he returns to Wakanda. So the aim of becoming a ruler of Wakanda was to legitimize the use of violence to achieve his goal. So if if he had defeated T'Challa and all of that, and nothing had happened, going to attack other countries using those means, the weapons that Wakanda had, would have been legitimate in international relations or international politics. We've seen that US going to Iraq or going to Afghanistan or going to Libya, and because politics at the end of the day, politics is what legitimizes the use, the means by which people address their grievances in society, right? So he went there to make sure that what he was trying to achieve was legitimate, and that he wasn't going to be branded as a terrorist, or as fighting for a lost cause, trying to demand for reparations within the land, when it's going to take ages or may never come. So he went to the source of what the problem was in order to deal. So being in America wasn't it was just the same thing, was the outcome of a problem. The source of the problem was in Wakanda, was on the African continent, and he went to the source to try to address that issue. And this is what brings me to the topic, right? So when we look at, because I'm looking at these largely because I'm into politics, largely from political angle. Just let's look at the coronavirus pandemic.
Right.
We see the important role of politicians. That is, in such an emergency, we see, regardless of your social status in society, you could be Serena Williams, you could be a celebrity or whatnot. You are forced into lockdown. It's
Right.
a political decision. So politicians they have the final say. So at the end of the day, and that is what the role of Killmonger also teaches us, to go there to use a political tool to address a political problem, because the history of Black Americans or other enslaved Africans was a political decision. It could have been the kings and those rulers who could have been accomplices, but some of them gave their consent. No, that the colonizers themselves and the slave masters or owners, they used politics. We know how, for instance, the UK knighted people because they went for slaves from West Africa and all of that. So it was a political situation. It was a political decision. Which means that, for me, the way I look at it, means that if you have a political problem, the root cause of dealing with that problem will be through politics.
Mm.
So you can do all the things that we want to do. Go to Africa for business, go to Africa for fun, for this and that and that. Try to reconnect to your roots and all of that. We still have to deal with decision making on the African continent, and African Americans, just like Killmonger.
Now, let me ask you this. First of all, guys, make sure you hit that like button. When you come to the chat room, please hit that like button. Are you saying that when African Americans repatriate back to Africa, they're not getting involved in politics enough? Or what are you saying?
So, yeah, so the point is, people go, the first thing is, we want to reconnect with our roots. Some go for tourism, some build and all of that, but you don't see significant numbers going, understanding the local politics and demanding what is rightfully theirs through a political angle. And it's not, African Americans are not demanding a seat at the table. What has been created by the African Union, for instance, the sixth region, we know that the AU in practice is almost non-existent in terms of political decision making. It's just the AU, just as the OAU that preceded it. The original idea of Kwame Nkrumah and co, the so-called Casablanca group in 1963, what they wanted for, they couldn't. It was just, it doesn't do anything. I mean, it's just like ECOWAS. ECOWAS says that free movement persons, but across West Africa, we know that there are areas, right? So these institutions on the African continent, at the regional level or the continental level, in terms of forcing individual member states to comply to rules, it's almost non-existent. Like, see, for example, Kenya African Union is trying to implement free trade area, and Kenya goes to sign a trade deal with the US. Why would Kenya, who has ratified free trade area, go to sign? Effectively, you are undermining the, what they are trying to achieve. So the point is that when people go to the African continent, African Americans, I think, once they become so, the first point to note is that those on the African continent must recognize that African Americans, the Africans in the diaspora, it's right, the rightful heirs to whatever. They are as African as those on the continent. So they are as Africans as those on the continent, which means that if those on the continent are involved in political decision making, those outside the continent are equally entitled to becoming part of decision making on the continent. And when you have that platform, when you have significant numbers, we've seen the difference it makes. For instance, in Ghana, Dr. Kabum,
Whoa. But
Badele,
yeah.
yeah, we've seen how he helped. He was part of the people that the government consulted in terms of drafting
Right.
how to grant citizenship.
Uh,
Because he had a different perspective, because Ghanaians, we should know that the problem with Africa, that the educational system is even problematic. Okay, continue.
yeah. So Nana, so I actually interviewed Dr. Gobo. So when they brought up, so from the Ghanaian perspective, when you say diaspora, it doesn't include Black Americans like myself. And it's just solely people like you who are Ghanaians outside of Ghana. So he had to, correct them on that and educate them on that. That no, diaspora means if you are of African descent and you, no matter where you're at, well, if you are of African descent outside of Ghana, you're included in the diaspora, not just the Ghanaians who do not reside in Ghana.
Yes, because he was. What is the source of the problem? Because Ghanaians are, just as every other African continent, the curriculum in schools are designed by the colonial masters.
Right.
So they don't teach about slave trade. Ghanaians may have visited the slave dungeons in Cape Coast or Elmina, but do not necessarily understand. Till today, many Africans think that the transatlantic slave trade is just a story. Many
Right.
of them don't even know. So even the year of return exposed that, because when people were going to Ghana, the locals didn't know, because they had not been educated. They didn't know why people were coming to the Black Americans and others were coming to the continent, or they were seeing those people as foreigners. And that's what Dr. Adele was telling those people when he said diaspora. For the Ghanaian doesn't know that Ghana is a Western creation, Nigeria is a Western creation, that these countries were demarcated in Berlin, not by Africans, but by the Europeans. So when you've been brought up in that system, it takes somebody like Dr. Kabum to go there, who is enlightened, to tell them no. The meaning of diaspora is more than the so-called Ghanaians who are outside the continent, and that is why we need we need the diaspora to go back to, because we should know that those on the continent, for those on the continent, probably their ancestors were also, may have been culpable in the transatlantic trade, so they may have been in advantageous positions to make certain decisions. Now it behoves Black Americans and other, Africans in diaspora to make sure they correct that story by going back to the drawing table to demand a seat at the table, and making sure that what happened in the past by some of our ancestors, that it doesn't happen again. But we know that it's not a history of.
Well, Nana, the argument is, and real quick, I want to shout out my brother. Hold on one second so it can pop up. I want to shout out my brother Brandon. All right, guys. When you get a chance, make sure you take the time out. This is my brother Brandon. Pan Africanism Strikes Back. Link is in the chat room. This is his YouTube page. Guys, click on the link, subscribe to his page, and let's get the brother Brandon some more subscribers. Again, that's my brother Brandon. Pan Africanism Strikes Back. Let's go support this brother. And Mimi, thank you for the super chat, sister. Thank you so much for the super chat. And guys, make sure you hit that like button when you come to the chat room. Again, hit that like button. And Monifa, I see you. I see you, Monifa. Thank you for the support, Monifa. How can you donate? You can chat or cash app. Hold on. There you go. You can either cash app or you can super chat. That's how you can donate. All right, now go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So let's say those in America, in terms of reparations, if you ask yourself how much would the American government give to each Black American as a form of reparation, I would like to think that in terms of financial gains, if you were to go that tangent, if Africans are if the African continent is um going for reparations for African Americans may stand to gain more on the continent than what America may give to them.
But
So
see,
the money America.
this is the issue, Nana. Number one, the
Mhm.
majority of influential African Americans could care less about reparations here in America. The majority of influential African Americans could care less about Africa. The end game is here in America. That's part of the problem. Now, think of all these black billionaires, Oprah Winfrey, all these black politicians, Barack Obama, say they all came together, demanded reparations, approached African countries and leaders in regards to rights and benefits for Black Americans. It'll be done just like that. But again, the end game is America. They hate America, but they love America at the same time, and they don't see anything outside of America. That's the problem.
Yes, but that and then it's going through the American route. Uh, uh, Going for reparations on the African continent does not necessarily mean that people will have to leave America to go and live in Africa per se. So, you know, whether you're living, when you're living in America and you still have attachment to the African continent, and just as what is happening, some of these some people are fighting for automatic citizenship on the continent because it's rightfully, I mean, the right of those in the diaspora to go and claim that. My point is, in America, you can be comfortable in America, but ask yourself, if America's if the government, the state says that they are giving each person, I don't know, 100,000 US dollars or any amount that you can think of each person to take home. The system, if you're not part of this, is the problem. If you're not part of institutions that make decisions, the system can find a way of taking back what it has given you. So they can give you reparations, all right, but you are still not at the seat of decision making. And through taxes or whatever means, the system can devise ways of even correcting what we've seen it working and giving your money. You work and then you give your money to the system. You work and give your money to the system. Whereas when you look at reparations from another angle, to say that you don't have to go and live on the continent, but at least to recognize, you have to be true to yourself to recognize why you are where you are. And if you want to tackle the problem from the source, when African countries, when Blackzit and those people, if they succeed in saying that there is automatic citizenship and there is they demand official recognition and pardon from African leaders for the role of Africans in the transatlantic slave trade, and imagine Black Americans becoming politicians, taking up political positions on the continent, it gives you the leverage to be in the international scene to contest the UK government or the US government in terms of reparation. Because
Okay.
you now have, that is the role of Killmonger. You now have the platform to begin to dialogue. So you can live in US and say that ADOS and all of that, but it's just a civil movement. You're not part of the decision makers. You know, you demonstrate you're part. Even when you go back to you mentioned Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey be influential in terms of media and all of these things, but it's not part of decision making in America. You can mention Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. These were influential leaders in the black community, but were not decision makers in the country. Imagine if Martin Luther King had. We know that Luther King was in Ghana, for instance, for Ghana's independence.
Yeah,
But
he
of
was.
course, he went with the,
Uh-huh.
but he went with the mindset of being an American, right? Or an African American or whatever. But imagine he went there and understood that he was as African as Kwame Nkrumah.
Right.
Just as with Du Bois. Du Bois became Nkrumah's advisor, right? He died in Ghana and all of that. So imagine Martin Luther King had used that energy for the civil rights movement, channeled that energy and became influential politician on the African continent, could have stood toe to toe with America and with the West, whether through the United Nations or through international bodies, in terms of issues facing black people in America, because you have the platform. And that is what I want to say. So you get to what Africa offers. So America, you may still achieve it in America. You mentioned Obama. How influential was Obama in terms of defining, black politics or politics that affect black people in America? He almost didn't do anything. Many black Americans will say, he almost didn't, because the institutions do not permit him. You take away the color of his skin, the president of America cannot single-handedly. We know that Donald Trump has gone to the extreme to do whatever he's doing, but on average, institutions would not permit you to do certain things. So one thing that the African continent does or offers is, once you've gone there and not necessarily live there, but to demand the place at the decision-making table. So those who have gone there, not necessarily just building and all of that, but to be involved in the decision making. Now it becomes, when we are demanding for reparation, you can now, through a political lens, go whether through the UN diplomatic ties. You can, if a black American, for instance, were to be president of Ghana, you can close down American embassy or whatever UK embassy to demand for reparations. That is significant. Instead of protesting, now you have the institution that back the decision that you make. And that is why we don't have to let just those on the continent decide the fate, of those on the continent and those outside. And the reason why, the role of Killmonger in Black Panther is so significant, is to be able to affect institutions that put us in the position that we find ourselves.
Well, let me read this. Let me read the super chat real quick, guys. Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you so much for the birthday love, Mimi. I see you. T. Kelly, I see you. Thank you so much for the birthday love. When the opportunity for reparations came, African Americans and Africans on the continent both asked for everything but reparations. What they asked for. Pan African Strikes Back. Just call in. In about 10 minutes, I'll email you the link. Well, let's see here. In about 5 or 10 minutes, I'll email you the link. All right, go ahead, Nana.
Yeah. So, so the points that the points that I've made so far is really from the angle of politics, the power of politics in shaping most modern states. And politics offers, it legitimizes the struggle for everything. So one way by which we can begin to address issues in Black communities is having significant numbers, even in America, is having significant numbers of blacks into political positions, or into legal positions, all of that, so that institutions are shaped in a way that benefits the black community. Otherwise, when you have isolated individuals, Obama or Oprah Winfrey, or individual, the impact that has in a society is significantly less. But when you've got the numbers, if Black Americans, for instance, had a very strong political party, for instance, that could compete and win elections in America, that would have changed many of the discussions over there regarding the plight of Black people in America. So having access to that platform to begin to shape institutions is really, really important. And I encourage people, whatever, in as much as people are going to the continent for different reasons, for business, for this and that, emotional tours, going to the slave dungeons, building, retirement, and all of these things. One thing that has not been on the table that I want to bring into I want to reinforce in the discussion, is the important role, that political power can get. And it could be relatively easier to access political power on the African continent. It could be easier to do that on the continent than in foreign lands, like America. Because one, we know how, for instance, when people go to Africa, we know how Africans perceive foreigners,
Right.
or people coming from outside. So that the tag of being hospitable, hospitality, we know, has been the downfall of the African as well, or of Black people.
Right.
And it's not something that we say it's 400 years of history, or 500 years of history, or 600 years of history. But when we look at about 200,000 years of history of Black people, why Black people lost North Africa, um, to Asians and to Europeans, why the transatlantic trade was possible, why few Europeans go to the African continent and take over the continent, largely because they got help from the locals. So Africans on the continent, one one major problem that we face, has been hospitality. Hospitality is good. It's good to show love to people. Africans do that to the detriment of their well-being and for their own safety. So you see, with how Chinese are trooping into Africa, it's the same way, the North Africa was invaded. People go, they establish, and within um, a certain number of years, we see that the dynamics change. They take over power. So one other problem of the African has been short-sightedness, failure to put up institutional structures that last. So the white people, what we know, what they've benefited from, has been institutions that have lasted for generations. So we talk of generation, you establish something, and they are looking 1,000 years from now. When you
Let
look
me
at the trajectory in Africa, when we, before me, okay, before you come in,
go
when
ahead.
you
Go
look
ahead.
at Africa now, in the next 500,000 years, what is happening now, if it's not addressed with the influx of Chinese, Africans are likely to be recolonized or to be enslaved in the next 500, or next 1,000 years. But Africans fail to see that problem. It's a problem that is not 400 years old. It's not 500. We are talking about 200,000 years of history. So sorry, go ahead before.
I wanted to read this. Let me read this super chat from shout out to EA. The best form of reparations would be for African citizens to plan their countries. Planning from the city level to federal government will enable diaspora investments to be effective. Thoughts on that
Yeah, when
comment?
you look at this comment, for instance, see, this comment reduces the role of the diaspora to investments. Why are people not talking about diasporans also being part of the political decision making in Africa? That is my problem. They see the diasporans as coming in to give us money or to do this, to do that. They must be you bracket diasporans when it comes to political decisions on the African continent. That must change. And diasporans must ensure that that changes. You don't just take investments and then politicians are making decisions that affect your investments and you don't have any role. We've seen with Blackzit, right? Why should Julia be fighting for citizenship in Gambia? I mean,
Right.
because
Yeah.
the constitutions don't recognize it. Why? Because the white people drafted the constitution for for Africa. It's a template of what these people have given, and so they go there instead of making automatic citizenship part of the constitution. And because you don't have significant numbers of the diasporans or African Americans in political decision making on the continent, these constitutions have remained as they are. So once some of these things are taken care of, when the diasporans are involved in the political decision making process, you begin to demand changes in the constitutions, how citizenship is funded, you know, how diasporans go to the continent to invest, the relationship between the continent and Asia, and the West. All of these things come into perspective. And also the issue of reparations.
Yeah, so the comment is I agree, but we must have Pan African minded people at these tables. We have a black mayor, city council persons, and black congressional officials. They are mostly calm minded. We can't have these types. See, that's what I was telling you at the beginning. Like the people that African leaders will respect, they as far as African Americans, they're completely disengaged and disconnected from Africa. They could care less.
uh, I would like to think I don't they care less because up until this time there hasn't been significant numbers of African and American trooping the African continent. One thing that I was one thing that I was disappointed when Julia made her video on
Right.
fighting for citizenship in the Gambia. I expected the diasporans to make that thing trend because there are many diasporans on the continent who are still fighting for citizenship,
Right.
and because they don't have seat at the table, because they don't have seat at the political table, the local politicians are treating them the way they are treating them. So if you have significant numbers going there to say that we are here and we are not here to beg for citizenship, we are here to reclaim our citizenship. We are here to be part of the political decision making process because politics that put us in the position that we find ourselves in the first place. So Oprah Winfrey, we've seen Steve Harvey, right? Steve Harvey doing his show in Ghana and South Africa and all of that. That has no bearing on political decisions in Ghana or South Africa. So those people are respected, but in terms of political decision making on the continent, Oprah Winfrey may recognize Oprah and all of that, but in terms of decision the continent, Oprah is irrelevant. So when you've got significant numbers on the continent demanding for what is rightfully theirs, demanding for a seat and not leaving them, demanding for seats at the political table, then we can begin to redesign the constitution on the continent. We can begin to redesign, we can begin to refocus or channel how to channel the issue of reparations and all of the problems that we can think of in the black community.
Cool. Guys, hit that like button. Thank you so much, everyone who super chatted. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Again, hit that like button as you come to the chat room, and don't window shop. If you're new, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscription button. All right, Brandon, go ahead, brother.
Hey, I just wanted to comment on this situation because it's something that the word reparation seems to be the buzzword for the past 2 years or maybe 3. And I believe a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to reparations, you have to ask for what you need at the time when the opportunity presents itself. Both African Americans and Africans on the continent, when they were at the crucial time to make demands, when colonization was ending to an extent, during the civil rights period of the United States, we have the opportunity to demand physical reparations, 40 acres and a mule, some type of cash payment, things like that. But what did we demand? We didn't demand money. We didn't demand land. We demanded equality. We wanted to be like white folk. That's what we wanted. We didn't say, I want a check for $20,000 for every black person in America or even in South Africa. We said, we want to be able to go sit in a store and eat a sandwich sitting next to a white person. That is what we demanded. And they gave you everything you asked for. Right. That is your reality. So to come back years later and be like, oh, they need to give us reparations. They've given you reparations and they continue to give you a form of reparations. That's why all 5 of my sisters get a welfare check and food stamps for every kid that they choose to have. Hey, Dinus, I'm being real. I'm being real because we all need to be real. That's why we got project housing, low income, all these type of things. Now, they don't have all that in Africa. I agree, but I'm going to get to that. We have to be realistic about what we've received. I can't support my 5 sisters, so the white man support them for me with my little tax money and everybody else's tax money. We have to start looking at how we can move forward without even looking at the white man for anything. Because as long as we keep, let me just share something. Remember, everybody knows about the Bible. Remember the story of Lot when he ran out of Sodom and Gomorrah? Remember, they were like, if you look back,
don't look back.
Don't look back. When you look back, his wife looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt. She got stuck in one spot. That's the fate that black people have if we keep on looking back at what could have been or what should have been. We have to look forward. I don't want to look at the white man. I want to look at Nana and be like, what can you do for me where you from? And what can I do for you coming over there? I want to look at Dinus and be like, look, Dinus, I need your help. And this is what I can do for you. Or what do you need to do for me? We need to start looking side to side at each other instead of looking behind us at what the white man should have did or could have did for us. It's never going to work out.
Oh, Brandon, real quick, not to cut you off. So, okay, so the argument will be, the counter argument will be, well, there's more white people on who get, I guess, state benefits or welfare or WIC or whatnot than black people. What would your argument be when you try to say that part of reparations?
My argument would be the white man built up what he has for his people. Yes, we built the infrastructure, but that was a couple hundred years back, and that we should get recognition for that. But the systems that he put in place, he made them available to his people as he should, and he made them available to you. So if he had made it only available to him, that would have still been okay because that's his stuff he's handed to them. And the minute you bought into his system, you agreed to it. You were complicit in it. So you cannot complain about what he's doing or what he's doing for his people. All you can do is figure out what you can do for your people to put them on solid footing. I'm not even going to use the word equality, but on solid footing so that they can progress. And to Nana, you said something about African Americans entering into the political sphere of African politics, right? Here's the thing. I understand African nations not just opening up their arms to African Americans who come over there, because what you have to be weary of is African Americans who consider themselves African Americans who come with American ideologies, deeply embedded inferiority complexes, and believing that the only way to do things is if a white man approves it first, right? Because if you don't watch out for that, you're going to run into the same situation just with the white man as opposed to the Chinese. So they have to be vetted, but there should be some type of system where we from over here can apply for citizenship and positions over there. and even an interview process, even some type of curriculum, or certain things that you have to do to be even considered for citizenship and an equal role in that society. Being a part of a society is not something that is given, really. It's something that's earned. Black people fought for to be a part of American society. It will behoove us to work, to be willing to put into the work to be a part of African society. We are Africans, but not all of us have an African mindset. And if they don't have an African mindset, it's just as bad as a Chinese person or a white person going over there and you giving them the reins.
Yeah. Can I respond to say a bit?
Yeah, go ahead, Nana.
Okay. So Pan-Africanism. So you can see, like, from the first part of your statement, when you say when it came for African Americans to ask for reparation, they, you were demanding from them, means you were demanding from the state, from the politicians. So you are not demanding. I mean, the representation of Black Americans or African Americans at the federal level or in government has been significant. So you don't have many of those people in decision-making positions that make us knowing about reparations in America feel like we belong to this society and we are asking for what is rightfully ours. So when you say that you're asking them, is to say that you are asking the white man, because American politics has been largely dominated by white politicians, right? So, and that is what I, with your, that is the point, the problem I'm like, when you begin to look at the problem from a weaker position, from the position of foreign movement, at the end of the day, is the politicians who make the decision. And my argument is for African Americans or people in the diaspora to get to the level of being at the seat of decision making, whether in America or on the continent, so that it doesn't feel like you are demanding from the white man. If it's to get to that level, significant numbers in America, you talk about mentality. The problem is that Africans on the continent are largely shaped by colonial education, so they also like approve what the white man does. You only have to go to Ghana, for instance, and you see white Jesus all over, people worshiping Jesus and all over. But the thing is that people on the continent, the, one matter is people on the continent and those outside the continent have both been done in one form or the other by the white through different means, right? Through different means, those on the continent and those outside the continent. And the mindset, the education curriculum of the continent also seeks white approval because it's designed by the white man. The advantage African Americans have, on the other hand, the advantage Americans have is the fact that they've lived closer to the white man, right? They've lived in the same society for a significant period of time, significance on who only see white people who go there giving charity, thinking that the white man is the savior of the continent. Meanwhile, the white man is taking everything on the continent. The white man is a problem, or Western countries, let me be specific, be a problem of the cause of problems on the largely being the cause of problems on the continent. So it's just to say that I just want. So what happens to say that to seek white people, it's a problem on the continent, it's a problem outside the continent, but outside the continent have the advantage of living, of knowing better the colonial master or the former slave master, and may bring different experience African continent. The people on the continent may bring different experience to the table, and together you can begin to come up with policies on how to relate to the West, to Asians and yes, please go ahead.
When the advantage that Africans on the continent have is, look, if I drive 1 hour away from where I live, I ain't hitting nothing but Riverside, right? You drive an hour away from where you live in Africa, if that's where you live in Ghana, you at the village. You know what I'm saying? You're out there right at the epicenter of where everything started for you. You have your elders there, you have the village there, you have your culture there, you have your religion there. When I go to Kenya, I can go right over, I could drive 2 hours away from Nairobi, go to Mount Kenya, go to the villages over there, learn all about the culture of the Kikuyus and Ngai and Gikuyu and Mumbi and all this stuff. And I go do that. You guys have the culture right in your lap. Every single day, millions and millions of Africans choose to ignore their culture that they've had from the beginning and go follow and serve white Jesus, the white man's religion. African Americans don't have the option to say, look, we're just going to pull away from this and go back to what we used to believe, because what we used to believe is so far removed from us. So we go to the point of buying thousands of dollars worth of plane tickets just to come and get and be close to that culture and experience what it's like, right? And then if you're in a position of dying, you keep going back. You know, you explore voodoo, all these things, our culture. So it's not like a person can just take their kid to the village and so their kid learns what the reality is before they even come to the point of being indoctrinated. I have a daughter. I teach my daughter everything. My daughter doesn't really even know who Jesus is. The African people in Africa can do that. The reality is the ones who know, they won't show. You know what I'm saying? It's like that one movie I forgot. Oh, Boys in the Hood. Either they either know or
they don't
either
show.
you know or you don't give a damn. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Nah, if you ever see Boys in the Hood, you won't get it. But I don't know what the hell.
Right.
I don't know what the hell Dope Boy Ice said at the end of that damn movie. You don't know. It don't show. I don't know.
No, it's so real though, because either they don't know, they don't show, or they just don't give a hell. Because that runs through my mind every time I go to Africa. It's like, okay, this person doesn't know. This person knows, but they won't show. This person knows, but they just don't give a crap. That's the reality. Brothers over in Africa and sisters too, they know the reality. They know when they see that white Jesus up there, that ain't really how it is.
Right.
But guess what? They say, I remember one girl told me, oh man, if you're not married in the church, then everybody around you will despise you. Look, man, if you got some money in your pocket, they ain't despising the damn thing. They're going to be right up in your face. Because I'll tell a person after straight up, I don't believe in no Jesus. But guess what? They like, this dude got the money. He going to buy it from my shop, or I could benefit from being near him. They don't even care about that. So it's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors that revolves around one thing: the need for resources, the lack of resources. And that's what we need to target. We need to bring what we have to our people. In exchange, our people need to give us what we need. That's the reality of the whole situation.
I mean, resources. When you talk of resources, in terms of reparations, you may that if you pursue that in Africa, African Americans may gain more on the continent than they gain in America. Even in terms of because we are on a continent that is still the richest natural resource continent in the world, right? The problem in Africa is not a question of a lack of resources on the African continent. It's a problem that has been created by the colonial masters, that the natural resources, the international system has been designed for the African continent to use its resources to make the societies flourish to their own detriment. That is the problem. So into Ghana, given Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, without Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, we know that chocolate will be a problem in the world. If they stop producing cocoa, it's a problem. It will be a problem. They don't dictate the price of chocolate, right? So we are looking at oil in Nigeria. When you take the Democratic Republic of Congo, the most and in the world, estimated over 30 just natural resources. So when you're talking of reparations in terms of even what Africans can give, may be more significant. Africans are, if there is a consensus to give, for instance, lands with gold or whatever to African Americans going back who sought reparations, and these things have been institutions have recognized it and they are giving it, that will be more significant than American government issuing some to African Americans. The other thing is, when you talk of going to Africa and experiencing culture, and we should know that just as the white man picked people from the continent, those on the underwent another form of mental harm. We are talking of hundreds of years of invasion. Black people we know were taught ancestors had blue eyes and all of this nonsense, and they imbibe. Today you can go to African countries where people they don't even speak local dialect, they only speak English or speak because they've like they've internalized that the colonial legacy that left behind. You've listened to Ghana's president before. You've heard president's accent, right? It doesn't sound like an average Ghanaian. He acquired that accent from elsewhere. So the African politicians themselves have been schooled in educational systems that have been designed by the West. When you go to the villages, you may have old people that may give you true accounts of Africa history, of what happened in the villages and all of that. But most of the people are ignorant. And when you look at the books that are there in the market, we know that the Western institutions control circulation of information. So you may read books about colonization, about the slave trade and all of that. You have to ask yourself, who is the author? Because what the authors have said about these things may define how you perceive issues.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. So with all that you said and all that I said, and Dinas, you can chime in on this too.
Go ahead.
Why on earth are the people among us who know? We know, we're in the know, right? The people watching this, the people who are talking, we know. Why do we continue to look back like Lot's wife and ask and expect things from a system that we know is all messed up and does not want us to get what is ultimately our goal? Why? Like, we keep discussing this as if by us discussing it, it's going to change their perspective. Like, their perspective is never going to change. And some of our people are a part of that.
Right.
I have a solution that I offered to one of my friends. What you think?
The majority.
The majority.
Yeah.
Can it keep out 98% of COVID-19 particles? No, I'm just kidding. But I have a solution that I offer to my friend in South Africa. He's one of the few Pan-Africanists in South Africa, right? And he's really miserable a lot because he's like, man, my people just don't see it. But I said, look, we go over to South Africa. We go to any country in Africa. We do just like the missionaries did. We open up a soup kitchen, serve some oatmeal for breakfast to the poor kids, whatever. And when we do that, we just start spreading our ideology to those kids. The parents still gonna send them because that's food. Because the thing that dominates Africa is the need for resource. And I'm not talking about gold and uranium. If I hand a person in Africa a nugget of uranium, 9 times out of 10, they won't even know what it is or what to do with it. I'm talking about the immediate needs: food, shelter, clothing, things like that. We have money. We're not broke. Why don't we take our money and invest in the continent, and then we gain the acceptance and the love and the admiration of our people from a young age, and by the time they mature, they're on our side, right? It's just like the Lion King. Remember when they took Simba in? He said, wait, what if he's on our side? That's what you do. Aim at the youth, give them the thing. What is 100 tons of oatmeal to me? I could probably buy that a couple times over every year. What is that to Dinas or anybody like that? We don't use the tactics of the oppressor to get what we need and to uplift our people. We keep on trying to like ask him to give us something, or ask him to do it for us and then give us credit for it. If we want the credit, if we want what we want, we have to take the risk. We have to make the moves to make it happen. That's just the reality of the situation. Constantly discussing it, not going to get us nowhere. We got to start doing steps, and that's what I like talk about on my page. Let's talk about some solutions, man. That's what I'm into.
All right, what we'll do, Nana, go ahead and respond, and then we'll do one more round, then we'll close out.
Okay, so in terms of the solutions, see, when you study Black history, what I found little knowledge about Black history, two major problems with Black with Africans on the continent or wherever. Why and when you read destruction of Black civilization, you get clues, right? The first has to do the first. I mean, it's important to talk, right? It's important to share so that we know where we are going. So speaking about it like this is important um, to be able to get together ideas. But the major problem that we face as a people has been the lack of understanding of self-preservation as a race. When you say about 200,000 years of Black, what you see is Black people have always loved foreigners more than they love themselves. People have. I'm not talking about 400 years or 500 years, 600 years. I'm talking of 200,000 years of why many of the great kingdoms in Africa fell. Why North Africa fell. Why there was the creation of sub-Saharan Africa and all of that. The fact is, foreigners have always been that idea of society. Africans have been hard on each other. That it's up when an African, if there's a problem between, for instance, I know dynasties even a few days ago, like intermarriage in Nigeria and all of that, they are ready. They are ever ready to accept a white man as a husband for the person than the other African. So one major problem for Black people have been the love for foreigners to the detriment of their own being. As in, till today, ask yourself, why is it that Africa is so divided based on linguistics? That you say Anglophone speaking countries, Francophone speaking countries, why those people use local languages as national languages? They will tell you the Yorubas did this, the Igbos did this, the Asantis did this, these people did that. We can't unify. They do not study what the white has done to them. They do not. What the transatlantic slave trade did, people are ignorant, but they can easily remember what Asantis, few things, what what Benin people did, few things that the white man said about them. So that has been a for the white man to use the tactic of divide and rule. Divide and rule. You set the people up against each other. That has been African presidents been toppled, have been assassinated, and all that, because Africans have been part of the conspiracy. This is not recent history. This is a history of 2,000 years. The other thing has been, I've mentioned it earlier, has been short-sightedness. We always look at the problem from now. We think that the problem must be resolved in a year, 5 years, or but don't see the next 100 years, the next 500 years, the next 1,000 years. What is the trajectory going to be like? That has been our. What is the solution? For me, the solution is institutional. The problem is not the institutional problems needs institutional solutions. You need to create institutions. Some have called it perpetually lived institutions, enlighten people for a significant period of time. And this politics, you need a system in place. You cannot find a system with individual ideas, single ideas, isolated ideas. I I'm happy when I see, for instance, like, YouTubers, when you collaborate and all of that. That is the way when you come together for institutions to have a bigger say on the problem at hand. How do you create the institutions?
Okay, let
One,
me say.
we have to understand that
Okay, let me
we have to.
respond to that. Dinus, is
So
it okay if
let's
I
do this.
respond?
So Brandon, go ahead and respond, and then Nana, after Brandon responds, you can respond, and we'll close out. But
Can I just address one thing in the comments, please, Dinus?
you gotta take your time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, somebody said, "Oh, it sounds like this brother has never been to Africa." We need to stop attacking the people who speak up about what the reality is and try to offer solutions. Right? We sit up and we glorify people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, but in reality, the people who attack people like us are the same people who would have attacked them back in the day, because at this point, they don't want to acknowledge the reality of the situation that we face. So I've been to Africa many times over. I have businesses there. I have a property there. I've been there a lot of times, specifically in Kenya. Hey, if you need a place to stay, you go to Kenya, hit me up. I got a place for you. Of course, you're going to have to pay me, but I got a place for you. You need a place. But the thing is this. We keep on, people think that if we stop banging our head up against the wall and go another way, like going around the wall, right? They believe that that means that we were defeated or we gave up or something like that. That's not the truth. When one way is not working, you find another way. That is the definition of insanity, to continue to try to do the same thing over and over again with no results and expect different results. We have to have a different strategy. We keep on looking at the mass awakening. The mass awakening was a good idea, but it is not realistic. One thing that Lou Major talked about the 15% ruling the 85%, he didn't put that in nice terms, so a lot of people missed it. But no matter where you go, there is a distinct minority that controls and rules the majority. If you look at America, you got 500 old farts on Capitol Hill ruling 450 million American people, controlling everything they do. Anywhere you go, it is a small minority. If you are watching this broadcast, you are a part of that minority. Now you have to make a choice. You can be a ruler, or you can be a ruler and lead, or you can keep on trying to wake the sleeping giant that is the masses of black people. When the United States killed Osama bin Laden, they sent their entire army into the Middle East. They never caught it. But when they sent a small group of Navy SEALs, they were able to execute the mission and kill him. Because when you have a small number, you're able to be more precise and deal more damage. That is what we have to do when it comes to us gaining our inheritance on the continent of Africa. We have to take this group we have and be like the tip of the spear and go into the continent and start doing what we have to do to open it up for everybody else. I agree with Nana. He's 100% on point. Many of you agree with him, right? Of course we agree with him, because it's like he's preaching to the choir. We all know the reality. The situation and its characteristics are so acute that even my daughter, when she was 5 years old, could tell you what was wrong with the relationship between white people and black people. We all know. But what are we going to do about it? Are we going to keep complaining and basically handcuffing ourselves? Because when you guys sit up and criticize me, it's okay. I have thick skin. I can take it. But every time you criticize me, all you're succeeding in is discouraging a person who's greater than me from even putting their hat in the ring, because they don't want to face that criticism. So when you criticize those taking the lead, you are just keeping other future better leaders from even stepping into the game, because they don't want to deal with the constant criticism from their own people. We have to be 100% supportive. I don't care what Dinus does. I support him. I don't care what Nana does. I support him. I don't care what any black person who's doing work does. I support them. I mean, of course, there's some ridiculous stuff, but I'm talking about in general. I don't care who their girlfriend is. I don't care what type of what they like to eat on the top of their pizza. All that insignificant stuff. We need to stop looking at our people, tearing them down based on moral issues and different types of little nuanced things. We need to look at the overall agenda, and we need to stop watching what they're doing and criticizing. We need to start getting to work ourselves.
You
Yeah,
want to
and
respond to Nana too, Brandon? Because we're gonna close out here shortly. You want to respond real quick to Nana, Brandon, or did you already
Oh,
respond?
yes,
no, Nana is on point. There's no real rebuttal necessary. He's 100% accurate about the European, the training and the program and all that thing. What I've been saying is, look, we got to start retraining our people, and it is 100% possible. You have African Americans going to Ghana and different places, starting schools left and right or wrong. People are starting schools like you start up a car. They're like, oh, I went and started a school and this and that and whatever. Okay, now that we know there's a school there, what do we got to do to influence the curriculum towards Pan-Africanism? If you give one of these school people $10,000 or $20,000 a year, they'll have a whole segment in their school dedicated to Marcus Garvey every day. It's all about money. It's all about resources. The money talks, the BS walks. Because if I'm starving and there's a sandwich on that table, I don't have time to listen to you talk about nothing. I need to get to that sandwich because I'm hungry, right? And that's the reality that we face in Africa. You can sit up and talk about all types of, this and that, metaphysical and everything else. That all has its role in this situation. But what this movement is missing is, and if you go to my page, you can watch a video. It's entitled, Are You Ready to Lead? You're ready to lead, but are you qualified to follow? We need qualified followers. The leaders need qualified followers. People who can put their emotions to the side and look at what needs to be done and get to the work of executing it. And that's it.
Cool. All right, Nana, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out. Anything you'd like to share in closing, Nana?
yes, I thank you very much, Pan-Africans. I really I also agree with the point about supporting each other, which is very, very important. Unfortunately, I said we've been way more supportive of other people and to our detriment, right? That is a huge contributing factor to transatlantic trade, to the of North Africa, like to many have happened to Black people across time. So supporting each other definitely, a point, good point. What I want to emphasize is there has been a missing. There's a void in the discussion of the role that I'm talking of Africans or the diasporans who have attachment to the continent, and what is missing is the political voice. And at the end of the day, politics decides with this group. Politics at the end of the day, and we've seen with Donald Trump, with all the riches, want to become American president. We've seen all these rich people trying to be political decision makers, and that has been, for me, from the observations of the many things that have, in terms of reparations and all of that, that has been, African diasporans going to the African continent must not stop at just doing businesses, must not stop at just going there to gain titles and lands and all of that, but must support securing, having a voice in political decision making on the African continent. You don't have to be reduced to the level of investors and ultimately political decision making is a significant institutional factor that can help us deal with many of the problems, whether it's reparations or any other problem. So solution is having, obviously, so that is what, for me, what I'm proposing is an institutional solution, which does not require 1 year or 3 or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. Problems that have been created for 2,000 years. The same mistakes have been repeated over and over again. we've been short-sighted. Great African leaders, week repeated the same. The cycle has been same. When you history 2000 BC and you look at what is happening in 2020, you think that any shift. We are still where we are, and that is the point that I want to make. We need institutions that last, outlive us, but that so after us will be there to deal with the issues that we are confronted with, not issues that will be there for and then disappear, or 5 years or 1 year and there. So and politics is a significant factor in this. So what I'm proposing is from I've just been stuck. I'm trying to finish a PhD. I've been stuck here, right? But I've been trying to start something like what I call Africa for Africans movement, for instance, trying to assemble other people to begin to collaborate, those on the continent, those on the continent, to have a voice, a collective voice that is significant enough to have impact locally on local politics in Africa. So I'm looking people in countries on the continent, but also the diaspora, and also have a voice in continental level, African Union, the regional level, ECOWAS, and all these other bodies. Must be pushed. The role of diasporas must be enhanced in this aspect, so that decisions that are made on the continent, if you cannot be involved in politics, you should be able to raise your children that they must be, some at least significant numbers must be involved in decision making at some point in time. That is what is eventually going to help us deal with the root causes of the so-called reparation, of the relationship between the rest of the world, the Chinese and whatever. If you have these enlightened people come together to create the platform and one voice to challenge the powers that be. Yes. So thank you for having me on your show, Dinos, and it's my first one.
No problem, brother. Anytime. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Everybody who's super chatting, thank you for super chatting. Make sure you go to dynastymir.com, like, share, and subscribe. Me and brother Fitzgerald Stevens will be on at 4 o'clock. So about an hour and a half. So everyone, thank you so much. Till next time. Peace.